All right, tons of CPU and GPU news today, PC hardware, all of that. Let's start with this. How about a Ryzen 7000 6-core CPU benchmarked? Kind of. I mean, this is still very much an early engineering sample, but we do actually have results in the Basemark database. And this was reported on Twitter by Tom Apisak, but I'm reading the article here at videocards.com. All my sources, as usual, will be in the description to the video. Now, this, we don't know exactly which chip model this will be, what its official name will be, but we do see that this is 6-core, 12-thread, and went up to 4.4 gigahertz. Now, keep in mind that a lot of times engineering samples aren't going to be up to the full speed and specs of the final release. This was on the AM5 platform, on an upcoming motherboard that we have seen announced in the past. This is the Gigabyte X670E Aorus Master, and with 32 gigabytes of memory. So we definitely can tell this is an upcoming AM5 CPU, 6-core, 12-thread. So this is what we would probably call the 7600X if they follow the same naming scheme that we would expect. And it looked like they had an Nvidia GA104-based GPU. That's probably one of their professional series, the A4000, along with this test. Now, I don't want to read absolutely too much into this benchmark. First of all, I don't even know a lot about Basemark. I don't think this is a very popular benchmark. But we had a Twitter user, Harukaze5719, found a similar test using a Ryzen 9 5950X SKU in this benchmark database to give us some comparisons. So don't take this as somebody actually had both chips, tested them themselves, and ensured that everything was even and fair and all of that. This is, I think, just taking another test with a similar system setup other than the CPU, just to get some rough performance comparisons. But it's looking like the overall score jumps between about 9.5% to 11% increases for the Zen 4 part. Now keep in mind, this is the probably 7600X class CPU, right? 6-core, 12-thread, beating the 5950X 16-core, 32-thread CPU from Zen 3. Again, like I said, with all of the caveats mentioned, and I also myself am not sure how multi-threaded this test is versus single-core heavy, because like I said, I don't know a lot about this Basemark test myself. Either way, we should be expecting these new CPUs to be launching soon. There have been rumors stating as soon as August this year. I would be surprised because we haven't heard any kind of big announcement events coming up in the next month, guys. We're already halfway through July, so I think August sounds a little bit ambitious. However, Intel's announced that they have an innovation developer forum coming up soon, where we'd expect to see the 13th gen CPUs announced. So we wouldn't expect AMD to be too far behind that, most likely. Now let's jump over to some GPU news. So this is just some more info regarding RTX 4000 series and release dates. When are we really expecting these? So initially, we'd seen a lot of rumors saying that they're going to launch with the 4090 first, and that this would happen in October, and that we would then see each step-down GPU come out 1 month apart throughout the year. And there's a bit of an update to that, at least depending on which leak and rumor mill you prefer to listen to. It looks like Moore's Law is Dead has posted that he is still foreseeing a October launch, and there's been other sources for that as well. However, he's not expecting volume available really until December, meaning it's going to be, probably only a few people can get them, a lot of scalping, and that's the 4090. And if you go over to our favorite little Digimon leaker over here with Greymon55, he's got some release dates, and again, Greymon has been accurate on things in the past, but again, this is leaks and rumors. But this would suggest that we'll only get the 4090 in 2022, and that we would, AD102 being the chip that the 4090 is supposed to be based on, and rumors have pointed to the 4080 being down on the AD103 chip. and then we'd be going down to the 104 and 106. And he's suggesting that we won't see those until 2023. So that would be a further pushed back release date compared to what we'd been hearing earlier. Now, by the way, he's also replying to his own tweet with other launch dates, and he's mentioning seeing Raphael announced in August and then launched in September. So interesting on that, Raphael, and not being NVIDIA GPUs. That's going back to our CPU side of things. Anyway, so this would be interesting. Now, we have heard a lot about there being too many RTX 3000 series in the pipeline right now. So NVIDIA might have got some pressure to delay some of the lower end 4000 series chips, because if they launch the 4090, there's nothing from the 3000 class that competes with that. So it wouldn't put as much pricing pressure as much as, let's say, they launched a 4070 or even a 4060 or something like that. That would give you a much better deal on similar performance to our top end 3000 series cards. So anyway, it could make sense to have these delayed. Now, with that in mind, let's actually take a look at this one next. So we've seen from a site called Bench Life, which is in Chinese. So I'm using this video cards article talking about their report. Now, again, this is unofficial. They're citing their own sources, so we don't have any way to evaluate the track record of these sources. But they're saying that during this week, which is now kind of near the end of this week, but that NVIDIA would be officially lowering the prices of the high-end 30 series models. Now, mainly this would just mean the 3090 Ti cut down to $1,500, which that's not much lower than what we've already been seeing models selling for. And we've even seen the Founders Edition cut down to about $100 more than that on Best Buy. So there's certainly something to be said for this. The 3090 then shifting down to $1,300, the 3080 Ti down to $1,100, and then the 3080 12GB, which never received an MSRP, originally would come in at $800, and then leaving room for the 3080 10GB at $700, and then leaving the rest of the product stack where it is. Now, most of these lower end cards are still selling for above their MSRPs, while these top end cards, regardless of whether NVIDIA really does lower the official MSRPs, these ones have already been selling below MSRP. We're talking 3080 Ti and higher. It's really just the 3080s that are starting to get near the MSRP, and then below is still usually inflated a bit above. So also, if you are waiting on that high-end NVIDIA GPU, you might be thinking about, like, you want that 4090, what sort of a power supply might you need? Well, it looks like Thermaltake will have you covered with a 1650 watt power supply with dual native PCI Gen 5 16-pin power connectors. That should be able to deliver all of your power needs. That's absolutely insane amounts of power. But honestly, guys, I'm wondering if I'm going to actually get some of these top-end GPUs. Like, I still have like a 850 watt power supply, which has been fine. But if I want to benchmark any of these high-end GPUs, I'm a little bit scared. We may be in need for some power supply upgrades coming in here. Now, more in terms of pricing changes. How about Intel reportedly increasing prices by up to 20% on basically all of their major product categories? Now, this is a WCCF Tech article, but apparently this is coming from Nikkei Asia. I probably mispronounced that. But they're saying that they're going to do a price hike on like everything. CPUs for servers as well as normal computers, as well as items including chips for Wi-Fi, other connectivity, all sorts of stuff. They're saying that this is due to production cost increases and material cost increases. We know that inflation and everything is going insane right now. So that's at least their excuse and possibly a legitimate reason. And it looks like the price increases aren't set in stone yet, but it's ranging between 10 to 20% in a lot of cases. Now, again, inflation has been going nuts. We've seen within the last year, June to June, we've seen a 9.1% increase in the U.S., which is a 40-year record. So prices for things going up would not be, out of line from what we would expect here. Also, that you know, coming towards the end of the year is our launch of our new 13th gen Intel chips. So I'm wondering if that means pricing on those won't be as aggressive as we would like, although hopefully pressure from AMD could maybe do something with that. Now, speaking of further Intel news, how about the Arc A310? This would be the lowest end of the Arc lineup, and look how cute and tiny it is. Like, now this doesn't seem to be an official, like, final launch version. This is just a pre-production unit. Doesn't look like anything else we've seen before. And this was not supposed to be publicly available, but was shared out, I believe. This cooler shroud is 3D printed, and this information is coming from Alexei Unwinder Nikolaichuk? I failed. Anyway, who's known for Riva Tuner and MSI Afterburner tools and all of that, and that's where this photo is apparently coming from. Now, this would be a very low-end, low-powered GPU from Intel, but from Gamers Nexus on YouTube, we've been getting a whole bunch of info about the A380 and the A750, which would be more reasonably powered cards. Now, we've got a lot of photos and discussion of the A750, but no benchmarks. However, we did get full benchmarks of the A380 in this Gamers Nexus review. Now, it looks like some people may have missed this due to YouTube accidentally marking this as an 18+ video. So if you haven't checked it out, I would highly recommend that you watch this, although I believe on his community post, he did confirm that they got that issue corrected, so it should be now entering better circulation. But if somehow you missed it due to that misflagging, this is a very interesting review, although I will say it mostly confirmed things I'd already reported on based on reviews coming out of China, but it is nice to see a major outlet like Gamers Nexus confirm a lot of what we've seen. Major things like if you don't have resizable bar, then forget about it. The performance is even worse. And then that the gaming performance is all over the place because of the drivers. And there was a lot of really interesting driver discussion in this A750 video with this engineer from Intel. And he basically seemed very honest and admitted that their drivers will take a lot of work. Newer games will be optimized better and on newer APIs like DX12 and Vulkan. But when you go back to like DX11 titles and DX9 titles, they have a lot of work ahead of them. And they're basically admitting that they just need to get these GPUs out into the market. You have to start somewhere. And that it will be a lifelong process of increasing the driver performance over time. So but it sounds like Intel plans on being in there in the long game and improving that. So that's at least good to hear, although you gotta be aware of what you're getting if you buy into one of these right now. More Intel news, we've seen a 13900K pre-production sample tested, and in this test it came out 10% faster than the 12900K in single-core testing. And, but again, this is a, you know, it's not the official released chip, so we'll see what we actually get from other, you know, testing. But this looks like a Chinese outlet here, Extreme Player, did get their hands on a 13900K, and they're saying on average 10% faster in single core tests, but up to 35% faster in multi-threaded workloads, which makes sense because they get those additional efficiency cores, which can help out a lot in multi-threaded applications that take advantage of those. So you can feel free to dive in here and look at some more details on these test suites, but they ran through quite a few of them, and overall are seeing you know, similar, but as usual, a little bit different depending on the test that you look at. Test results for all of these. So take a look at that link in the description if you want to dive further into that review. Now, again, Intel is announcing a September 27th innovation event where we're likely to see the 13th gen core CPUs incoming at that event. So stay tuned to that, and we should get some more info. Now, if you have an Nvidia GPU, you might want to take a look at this hotfix for their drivers that just got released. which should fix some of the issues in Apex Legends, Overwatch, Dungeons 3, Red Dead Redemption 2, Destiny 2, and Halo Infinite that I guess cropped up in the last driver. And speaking of drivers, AMD is tweeting about their driver process and improvements, highlighting how they've gone back and rewrote their DX11 code and all of that to give some major performance boosts. But I've already reported on most of this in the past. This seems like they're just kind of rehashing some of those. But it is good to see that AMD's drivers, especially on some of those older APIs, have been improving performance over time, which is really nice to see. Now, speaking of, well, I've got to mention this. So the Unity game engine, so the company Unity is announcing a merger with IronSource, which is known to produce malware. I mean, like, this is not something that people are happy to see. So, yeah, that's interesting. I'm not happy to see this merger. But in further, game engine news, we're seeing an Alien single-player game announced for Unreal Engine 5 for PC, console, and VR, which is interesting. And I also thought this was interesting. I guess, according to some kind of Reddit thread, Russia is interested in creating its own game engine, possibly with some financial backing from the state, although I don't think that this is at all finalized or official or anything based on what I read, because their fear of, due to sanctions, losing access to Unreal and Unity for game development and all of that. So anyway, I thought that was a bit of an interesting tidbit. Also, we're seeing GeForce NOW adding Loopmancer, as well as 8 more games with instant free play demo for Loopmancer if you're interested in the other games. We've got that list for you right there. And then TSMC is sharing some information about its upcoming processes, timelines, and performance. I think the big deal here is that they're saying that the 3nm process will enter mass production in the second half of this year. But they also gave us information about their 2nm node. The 2nm process is 10 to 15% faster than 3nm at the same power consumption levels, but 25 to 30% more efficient at the same frequencies. And now it's also saying that the density of it could only be a 10% increase over its predecessor. And that as for production timelines, it looks like 2nm will enter the trial production in 2024 and mass production in 2025. I realize my fat head may have been in the way of some of that. Anyway, whatever. We're unfortunately seeing that AMD and Intel CPUs may remain vulnerable to the Spectre v2 vulnerabilities even after some of the patches. I'm not going to dig into all of the details on that, but that's unfortunate to see. And we'll leave it here on FSR 2.0 mods continuing to develop. And this one looks like Diablo 2 Resurrected, as well as other DLSS-supported games, should be able to... So basically what this is getting at is that a lot of these mods that work in one game can, with some minor changes, be made to work in other games. And if you've missed it, some of my previous reporting, basically after FSR 2.0 went open source, modders were immediately able to take games with DLSS support and redirect the DLL files for DLSS towards the FSR 2.0 assets, and then you can get FSR 2.0 running on games with DLSS support, although this is usually not as good of an implementation as what you would see if a developer was able to hand tweak everything themselves. But it's certainly an interesting topic to dive into if you don't have a DLSS-capable GPU, either an older Nvidia GPU or an AMD GPU. I hope all of you have an excellent day.